The X-Bloom coffee maker does something incredible. It really is a front runner in a brand new category of coffee maker. Let's take a closer look. This is more than just a coffee maker. It's an all-in-one grinder and smart pour-over brewer that aims to remove every obstacle to you having incredible pour-over coffee at home, and without any of the effort that would normally go into making a pour-over. Now, full disclosure, this unit is a prototype from X-Bloom. I picked it up from my buddy Matt at Lifestyle Lab. Definitely go over and give him a subscribe. X-Bloom approached me about creating some reels to help with their Kickstarter launch. And once I had a prototype in my hands, of course, I jumped at the chance to make a review for you because I knew you would have questions about it. Now, this video is not in any way sponsored by X-Bloom. It's outside of any arrangement I have with them, and my thoughts here are totally my own. Now, I remember the first mind-blowingly good barista pour-over that I had in a cafe. It totally changed my experience of coffee, and I, of course, had to try and replicate it at home. Now, if you've ever tried making a pour-over at home, you'll know it's just really hard to do. It takes a lot of research, a lot of equipment, a lot of practice, and unfortunately, most of the time, at least I did, you end up making a lot of really bad coffee. This claims to shortcut that problem and in the process teach you how to become your own home barista as well. Now, what I will say is anything that claims to make incredible pour-over coffee for you at home automatically usually doesn't. So when I first saw the X-Bloom popping up on Instagram, I didn't really pay much attention because Kickstarter coffee maker projects are kind of a dime a dozen. They come, they go. A lot of them don't even make it into production. But then something happened. I started to see some really big names popping up as X-Bloom advisors, board members, team members. Names like Scott Rayo, Lance Hedrick, Brian Kwan. These guys are heavy hitters in the coffee industry. Then I started to see the roasting partners that were jumping on board with X-Bloom. You have companies like Verve, Onyx, and Chromatic Coffee, true specialty coffee roasters that pride themselves on quality above all. And I had to ask myself, what was going on with this thing? Now, I've tested prototypes for companies before, and very often they come in like this hacked together, taped up cardboard box. And as soon as I picked up the X-Bloom prototype from Matt, I knew this was going to be different because it came in this crazy custom flight case that was just totally different than anything that I had seen from any other prototype I had gotten. As soon as you touch it, you know this is not just cheap plastic Kickstarter junk. It just feels solid. And I wasn't at all surprised to learn that there are some Apple engineers behind the X-Bloom. It just has that cohesive feel that feels like it's nice to experience. Then there's the coffee. Now, no disrespect to any K-Cup users out there. In fact, I enjoy the odd K-Cup myself, but let's just all acknowledge that pods are not renowned for their high bar of quality. They get you a caffeine fix quick, they're super convenient, but the coffee is pretty mediocre and nowhere near what you would get from a pour-over cafe. Now, what the X-Bloom claims to do is marry up those two experiences and combine that crazy good pour-over coffee that you would get in a cafe with that Keurig convenience and bring them together into one package. And not only that, but it also claims to be able to teach you how to become your own home barista in the process. And I can barely even believe that I'm saying this, but the way that it does that is kind of incredible. This coffee maker optimizes every aspect of the coffee brew. The grind size, the water temperature, the coffee ratios, the flow rate. You open up the pod and inside is this whole bean coffee. You dump it into the grinder adjusts to the perfect size, grinds the coffee back into the pod slides back over underneath the brewer pours the perfect temperature water in the perfect pattern over the perfect flow rate and brews you an incredibly good cup of coffee. It can even agitate the brewer at exactly the right time. Like, what? It's crazy. But let me blow your mind here because the real power of the X-Bloom is right here. Inside each one of these pods is an RFID tag. And The way this works is this little RFID tag gives the machine instructions for how to perfectly brew every coffee that you put through it. Now, how does it do that? Well, every roaster takes their bean, crafts a recipe that is to their exact spec, which every X-Bloom can replicate with the instructions inside here. Pretty wild. So when you get a pod from Chromatic Coffee or Onyx and you brew it in your X-Bloom, it's brewing it exactly the same way that those roasters intended. And I can't even do that as a home barista. And the result is a wildly good cup of coffee to the roaster's spec every time. Now, there are a couple other features that I really like about this and really speak to the thoughtfulness of the design. There's a little fan that prevents condensation from forming on the underside of the brewer. There's a reusable pod that you can use if you want to make your own recipes or get your own coffee. There is a scale in the cradle that measures the flow rate of the water going into it and prevents the coffee from overflowing if the water level gets too high. And the pods are sugarcane based, natural, biodegradable, very cool. Now, there's some stuff I don't love. The display looks fantastic, but it's not nearly as practically useful as the app. And whatever the final version of the app ends up being could really make or break the user experience on this. Now, with Apple engineers in tow, I highly doubt that that is going to come out bad, but it still is to be seen. The pouring height is a little high, which can make for some splashing, something X-Bloom is aware of. There's a subscription model, which is fairly reasonable at $1 a pod, but personally, I'm kind of mixed on subscriptions. The good news is you can use your own beans with the reusable pod, and there is a marketplace where you can buy pods as needed. I will say all the tech is pretty impressive, but what's really crazy is the experience of using it. You get that perfect pour over, almost like magic, with the convenience of a K-cup. I have never seen that before. Not only that, but you can advance your pour over knowledge by looking at all the recipes in the app, getting a sense for what kind of grind size you need, learning what temperature of water works with different types of coffee, learning about coffee ratios and how it all comes together into a perfectly crafted cup of coffee. You can take all those different parameters and learn and take notes from the X-Bloom. It doesn't just make you great coffee, it helps turn you into your own home barista. But here's where it's going to get a little bit confusing for some of you. This machine retails for $799 US. Excuse me? Okay. That is a lot of money for a coffee maker. No question, but let's just take a look at this for a second. Say you want to get a top of the line ratio 8 coffee maker, for example. Now, that coffee maker, lots of people buy it, but many would also say it's kind of almost comically expensive at $795. Then you still need to get a great coffee grinder. Say you get a Lego Mini, which is comparable to what's in here. That is another $400, and you are at $1,200 before you've even learned how to make great coffee with your setup. This machine offers a ton in comparison for what it costs, and this is kind of crazy, but even at $800, it is good value. But that still begs the question, who is actually going to spend $800 on this? If you're a pour over fanatic, odds are you've already taken the time to figure out pour over. You like the zen, the rhythm, the routine. Doesn't this kind of rob you from that? And if you're just looking for the best pod coffee maker, even though this isn't really just a pod coffee maker, are you really gonna spend $800? Then I got to thinking, I actually do know somebody who this might be a great fit for. Hey Sarah, can you come over here?
Yeah?
Have a seat. I'm just gonna put this on you. Okay. What would you say if I asked you to make yourself a pour over right now?
No.
Why not?
Can't do it.
But don't you want the coffee?
Yes.
So what do?
Not make pour over.
Do you like good coffee? Mm-hmm. How good?
Really good.
Yeah. What's your standard for good coffee?
Perfect.
That's good. That's all I need.
That's all you need?
That's all I need. Yeah. Sarah loves a great cup of coffee and she has high standards, but there is no way she is going to learn how to make a pour over for herself. It's way too complicated. I know dozens of people in this scenario who love great coffee and are just really intimidated by pour over because it's intimidating. This machine costs around about the same as 200 barista pour overs at $4 a pour over. And even though that's a lot of money, when you put it that way, you can kind of start wrapping your head around the price. And if you want to get into pour over at home, what better way than with a crazy coffee making robot with dozens of roaster perfected pour over recipes? I totally missed this at first, but there is actually a lot of people who this might be a good fit for, even at the price point that it is. People who value incredible coffee, convenience, and design. People who want great coffee at home every day without any of the hassle or barriers. Busy people and parents like Sarah and I. If you have to have great coffee, you want to be your own home barista, you're willing to invest some money, and you find pour over a little bit intimidating, or maybe you're already a pour over person and like me, you're just super busy and you're willing to spend a little bit to opt for convenience without sacrificing quality. There isn't really anything out there like the X-Bloom. Will the X-Bloom become a front runner in automatic home specialty coffee? Time will tell, but especially with some of the names behind it, it certainly seems like it could. Now, I want to hear from you. Are you just listening to me and thinking, this guy is absolutely insane? Or does this machine actually kind of seem a little bit sensible to you? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe if this was in any way helpful for you, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.